What's up guys, I'm Landon from Shoewear, and instead of the usual shoe review or verses today, I'm going to bring you some of the lightest shoes on the market right now, kind of break down how they play. So I personally do like playing in lighter shoes. That is what kind of made me want to make this list. So a quick disclaimer, I haven't played in every shoe that's out there right now. So I mean, most of these are going to be more recent shoe releases. So this is my top 5 lightest shoes that I personally tested out. Let's get it started with number 5. Kicking off this list at number 5 is the Armour Future X. These shoes weigh 382 grams for a size 10.5, so this is probably going to be the oldest shoe on this list. They did come out around 10 months ago, just somewhere around that time frame, and they're going to retail for $120, so not expensive, not cheap, just kind of somewhere in the middle there. And as far as the look for these, this is kind of an alternative look to Curry's line ever since Steph kind of took over his own branding with the Curry 8. And spoiler alert, Steph may have his own shoe show up somewhere on this list, but I do love the strap on these. It's a really clean look as far as the setup. And for cushioning, these are going to get Under Armour's UA Flow cushioning technology that is also being used within Steph's line, and these are meant to be super light and bouncy. Obviously the light part is going to be true, otherwise they wouldn't be on this list. As far as the soft feel, these are going to be more on the responsive side than soft. You can tell that there isn't a ton of layers for the cushioning, but these aren't going to be uncomfortable or anything like that. And the materials on the upper for the Future X is going to be mostly mesh. It honestly doesn't feel like the highest quality if I'm going to be, kind of truthful, but I mean, the mesh design is going to be what helps keep the shoe super light to play in. And another benefit to that quality, or to that material, I guess, is going to be, good airflow, allowing your foot to breathe. And as far as the support goes, these are going to hold up pretty well for a low top design. It's also going to be super light, so you're of course going to have that midfoot strap to add a little bit of lockdown. And this is the only shoe on this list that is going to get something along those lines. These are also going to have a P-back shank in the midfoot region to kind of provide some extra stability, and the responsiveness is also going to get a boost from that technology too. But the highlight for this shoe is hands down going to be the traction. These get Under Armour's UA Flow outsole to kind of help you start, stop, cut faster than ever before. That's according to their website, and that is exactly what they do. I mean, these grip the floor so insane. Like, I'm actually glad that they did put that strap on these more, because I mean, you come to a stop so quickly that without some reinforcement, the support would kind of suffer pretty bad. I could even see some injuries taking place within these if you didn't have that strap on there. And then just because of that, the traction is going to be so sticky. Like, I mean, it's just like, I don't know what they use. Under Armour's been putting it in Curry's line, like I said, so I've just been really impressed with how that plays. So overall, the Under Armour Future X model is a really solid design. Cushioning, materials, and support are all pretty good, but the traction is going to be where these make their mark. But only weighing 382 grams is what lands them at number 5 on this list. Coming in at number 4 on the list is the Nike Kyrie 5 Low. These are going to weigh a tick lighter at 372 grams for a size 10.5. So this is a pretty new release. I want to say they came out around like March or April for $110 for retail, so on the more affordable side. And I actually recently just tested these out. My shoe review dropped on them yesterday, but I mean, this is a sleek and a clean looking shoe. The original Kyrie 5s kind of had that, floral looking patch that the lacing system kind of fed through, but I mean, they ditched that for the Kyrie 5 Low, probably just because, there's less shoe to work with on this model, but I do love the look of these. So for the cushioning, these are going to get a top-loaded Zoom Air unit that sits under the forefoot. It's meant to give you a quick burst and good responsiveness, and the energy return is really good on these. Compared to its original line though, like the 7s and most recently the Kyrie 8 Infinity, they aren't going to be quite as soft as like a feel as the 7s, not even really that close to the 8s. But I mean, similar to the Under Armour Future X, they have a pretty nice feel to them, just nothing over the top. And even with those units kind of being placed in the front half of the shoe, the cushioning still feels well balanced, which I did like, but the cushioning just isn't going to be the highlight on this model. But looking at the materials, you're going to have a few different textures at play kind of across that upper. The toe box is a thinner textile, and then it moves into more of a filled in like white portion around the heel. And then on the gray area on the back side of the shoe, on the heel especially, it's going to feel more like a fabric or a carpet. And these don't really feel cheap or high quality, kind of sits somewhere in the middle there. But clearly it does lead to these being super light, and the toe box does allow for good ventilation especially. And as far as support, these are pretty solid thanks to the heel structure. It just kind of makes your foot feel pretty locked in from what I've noticed. And the biggest help on the support category is actually going to come from like those yellow flaps on the upper that the laces are feeding through, and just tightening that gives you a really locked in feel for your foot. It just secures and makes sure that you aren't really moving around. So I did like that, because on low top models like this, you are kind of looking for anything that can help with the containment, at least even if it's a little bit. And I feel like those flaps do that. Then as far as traction, these are going to get a data driven pattern. That is something that Kyrie's line uses a lot compared to more of like a herringbone setup that has some arrows, more of an organized design, but they still play pretty well. Like, I don't think they have quite as much grip as some of his more recent models, but you know, they're still not bad. I haven't like dealt with any inconsistencies really, so not really a lot to complain about for this section. So for the Kyrie 5 low, the best way to kind of describe this shoe is going to be well balanced. Like there isn't a section that jumps out to me as being amazing, but at the same time, there isn't really a spot where these are like noticeably struggling. And it is a well-rounded basketball shoe, and that's only going to weigh 372 grams, which is what puts him at number 4 on this list. Next on the list at number 3 for the lightest shoes on the market right now is the Nike Flyby Mid 3. These weigh in 10 grams lighter than the Kyrie 5 lows at 362 grams for a size 10.5. So these released earlier this year for only $65. That is easily the cheapest shoe to make this list. I do think the appearance kind of reflects that. I mean, I like these, but it is a pretty generic looking shoe. So starting off with the cushioning, the Flyby Mid 3 doesn't really have a lot going on there. Nike uses a foam setup that is said to give you a good feel on and off the court. And I don't know, I mean, they may be overselling that part a little bit. I do normally test out some higher price shoes, which kind of allows for higher quality on most of them. So dropping it down to the Flyby Mid 3 was a little bit of a shock for my foot at first. So I would expect some breaking time on these, but I mean, to be honest, they're not gonna loosen up or like soften up a whole lot after you play in them more. But for the materials, the upper is made out of a combination of perforated leather and some mesh. That is gonna be what aids in keeping the shoe as light as they are. But I mean, they just aren't gonna be the highest quality, but you do have some holes kind of built into the upper to keep the good airflow for your foot. And at this point, that is pretty much a common theme for all of these shoes. And as far as the support, that's another spot that these do okay, but they won't be anything like too special here. And there's nothing on there to specifically help, like a strap that the Armour Future X had. There's no outrigger or anything like that. But the midsole is slightly running up the shoe, so that could help with the lateral containment slightly. But to finish off with traction, these did play a little bit better here than I was expecting. They have a similar look to the Flyby Mid 2 model, which released a year ago. And, you know, they had some wavy lines in that traction pattern. Pretty similar here, but you're going to have no break in that model from the 2s. These are going to get more of a break, and you have a pivot point mixed in there as well with a few other designs. And there is a little bit of stickiness on this model that I did like. So for the Nike Flyby Mid 3, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I think we're talking about the cheapest basketball shoe that Nike has put out, and it's at least going to be close. Like, it's got to be in that ballpark. And you can kind of tell from my experience that it is going to play that way for the most part. But the traction is honestly pretty solid, and if nothing else, they do remain extremely light, only weighing 362 grams, which is what ends them up at number 3 on this list. Making the list at number 2 is the 9th edition to the Nike KD Trey 5 shoe line. These match up to a T with the Nike Flyby Mid 3s, weighing only 362 grams for a size 10.5, but you know, I like these better, so that's why they get the 2 spot. But this is going to be a little bit of an older release too. I think they came out like roughly a year ago. So, but they did only retail for $90. But this is the newest model from his line, so that's why they are able to make the list. But the midsole does get kind of a rise near the ankle, allowing for a little KD disc to built in there. I think that's a really clean look for this model. But looking at the cushioning now, these are going to get Nike's renewed technology, which combines a soft inner core of foam surrounded by a firmer foam to kind of give you a springy feel. And you even get an additional Zoom Air unit that is designed to absorb some force and give you some more energy on your movements. And, you know, from this list, I'd say that these give arguably the most comfortable feel. It's probably between these and the ones that are up next on my list. But I mean, the KD Trey 5 is going to play even or better than most of the shoes around this price range. But looking at the materials, these are going to have a layered mesh upper that's going to be meant to give you a secure and supportive fit. And the mesh has been pretty common material used. It's been a common theme on this list, and that is a big component as to why these stay so light. But as far as the support on these, you do have an embossed disc that I just mentioned. It's going to act as a little bit of a heel counter to kind of keep your foot stable. Along with that is going to be some no-sew overlays that have done really solid. And, you know, it's done a good job up until this point. I just don't feel the upper move around whenever I'm making any type of hard movements in these. But to finish off with traction, that's another area that these two perform really well. Like, I don't normally go for the random traction patterns, but there is some grip on this model for sure. I wouldn't say it's going to be up there with, you know, the Armour Future X, but it is going to be better than most of the other shoes that we've covered on this list so far. So, I mean, overall, I am a pretty big fan of this KD Trey 5 shoe, the 9th edition for it. For a cheaper shoe, I mean, these really don't feel or play cheap, but above all, they do feel super light, only weighing 362 grams, which is what lands them at number 2 on this list. Rounding out the list at number 1 of the lightest shoes on the market right now is the 4-time champ's newest shoe, the Curry Flow 9. These hit the market earlier this year, retailing for $160, making them pretty easily the most expensive shoe to crack this list, but they also happen to be the lightest shoe that I have ever played in, weighing only 350 grams for a size 10.5. So this is easily my favorite shoe just as far as like the looks go on this list. I mean, ever since Steph kind of branched out with Under Armour, taking over his own side within the brand, starting off with the Curry 8s, his shoes have been so clean. Like, I love the 8s. I definitely love these 9s too. And Curry's new player logo is actually really cool, and it carries multiple meanings. So if you follow the design, you can see the S and C kind of mixed in there, which is his initials. And that is, you know, pretty common for every player to kind of get that for their logo. But it's also meant to resemble like him flashing the three-pointer sign, which Steph gets to do pretty often, being the league's all-time three-point make leader now. And in that extra mark above the design, it's even meant to represent the high wing on the court. So not everyone is probably going to love it, but you know, I do think it was a really cool change from the more generic look to his previous logo with Under Armour. But now getting into more of the tech specs and looking at the cushioning first, just like the Under Armour Future X had that kicked off this list, this is going to get a UA flow foam setup designed to keep these bouncy and lightweight. And obviously we've already established that they do check that lightweight box. But one thing I will say is that the Curry 8s did play a little bit softer than these Curry 9s do. They require a little bit more break-in time here, but they are still going to outperform pretty much every shoe on this list, besides maybe the KD Trey 5s. Those felt pretty comparable for the cushioning. But as far as the materials, these are going to get, you know, a much different setup than the Curry 8s had last year. You're going to have a UA warp upper, which has technology meant to provide an enhanced comfort and control just throughout all of your basketball movements. And then that's paired with a breathable mesh tongue to assist with airflow, kind of getting that to your foot. And all the materials that we've discussed in this video so far, these are going to feel like the highest quality. And I mean, you are dealing with a $160 pair of shoes that makes the same list as a bunch of other shoes. They're going to average out to, you know, roughly $80. So you would kind of hope for that. But something I do like about these Curry 9s better than the 8s is going to be the support. I mean, you're going to sit really secure within the shoe. Like, once you slide your foot in, it almost feels like it just locks into the model thanks to that heel counter, and it doesn't stretch nearly as much, so the lateral containment just feels better overall. And then to finish off with traction, that is absolutely the selling point of this model. Just like the Future X model, again, these are going to get that UA flow outsole that may as well just have glue on the bottom of them because they just allow you to stop on a dime. Like, not many brands can get away with using a random traction pattern that these have and like have them end up playing well, but Under Armour found a way to do it. These do really good on the court, and I just definitely love that model, or that aspect of this model. So coincidentally, the Curry Flow 9 ends up number 1 on the lightest shoe on my list, while also performing just as well, or performing the best out of all the shoes that are on here too. It is kind of funny to me how my favorite two shoes, the KD Trey 5 and the Curry 9s, also ended up being the 2 and 1 of the lightest shoes out there. But I mean, aside from the cushioning, taking a small step back on the Curry 9s, these pretty much have zero flaws. Like, it's light as a feather, only weighing 350 grams, and that is the ultimate reason as to why these cracked the top spot on the lightest shoe list. That wraps up my list of the top 5 lightest basketball shoes on the market right now. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you're interested in buying any of these shoes that we hit on today, we have links down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But I do have some more themed videos coming up soon, like top 5 budget-friendly options for basketball shoes, top 5 shoes of the year so far. Thinking about maybe throwing in one like best shoes to hoop in outdoors too, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.